Hello there, everyone. Today we are talking 10.2 Guardian of the Dream Blood Decay. We're going to be going over the tier set bonus, the Mythic Plus talents, raid talents, embellishments. We're going to talk about a couple of trinkets as well, and kind of go over the stats as well. So let's get right into it, and we're going to start with the tier bonus, because everything's going to matter around that, right? Now, by the way, the new tier set bonus, the tier set looks amazing for Blood Decay. We're going to talk about that. So good. I can't wait to farm these out in so many different color variants. So the 2 set, consuming runic power has a chance to cause your next heart strike to apply Ashen Decay, reducing the amount of damage dealt to you by 10% and increasing your damage dealt to afflicted targets by 20% for 8 seconds. 4 set, Soul Reapers execute damage and A-Bomb Limbs, Slappy Hands. Damage applies Ashen Decay to the enemy targets. And Heartstrike, Blood Boil, and Blood Boil's direct damage increases Ashen Decay by 1 second. So this is a very simple tier set. By playing rotationally and, heart striking and hitting Slappy Hands, you're going to gain a damage reduction and you're going to deal more damage. That is the essential of it. We are going to talk about the Soul Reaper execute damage in the raid portion of this. There are timestamps down below, but this is a very simple tier set and it is very, very strong and it's actually a lot of fun. So this is the main Mythic Plus kind of what's going on. Very little to no variant from last season. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Last season, I would sometimes opt out of Hemostasis and go into Double Red Thirst, especially in lower target count dungeons. Like Hemostasis did not get a lot of value in dungeons like Vortex Pinnacle, where there's like a lot of 3 mob pulls and things like that. Now, in higher keys, you ended up double, triple pulling where you could, but a lot of pugs in that 20 range could not handle that. So that did not happen very, very frequently, but that's something that you can do and opt into. There's been new information that's been released about Bloodshot and how it works, and basically the Blood Shield is active all pretty much before the Death Strike lands. So the way that it works is you actually, if I'm getting my information correct here, you pretty much always have Bloodshot for every single Death Strike. So the value of this talent has kind of skyrocketed up pretty high as well. One of the things that I really, really like in the class tree is Cold Thirst. Now, if you've played with any amount of pugs, you know sometimes they don't interrupt at all. So you being able to reduce the cooldown of your kick by 3 seconds on a successful kick is really, really important for getting through pug scenarios. You can also opt into Permafrost if you like. Your auto attacks grant you an Absorb Shield for 40% of the damage dealt. With the amount of eye level that we're getting, this talent is starting to see some real value, but that is whether or not you feel like you need it, right? This is completely up to you. In an organized group setting, I would definitely opt out of Cold Thirst and into Permafrost, so that way I know I could pull a little bit bigger and just have a little bit of extra healing while we had a kick rotation going on. But in pugs, that can sometimes be a little bit more difficult. And Asphyxiate is a button that I really hate living without in pugs as well. But if you do have a stop rotation in place in your organized group, you could absolutely go into, not Death's Reach, sorry, but Death's Grip of the Dead, so applying that 90% movement speed debuff, which definitely do not play that on on Sanguine Weeks, by the way. Even with the Sanguine nerf, do not play that on Sanguine Weeks. And I'm gonna put out a video when we kind of start testing stuff and seeing what is control undeadable. I don't think there's a whole lot of undead, but there are some stuff that we might be able to get away with in certain dungeons. I have a few in mind, but that's one of the few things that I just did not have the time to test. But that will be a separate video. If you're interested, hit that sub button down below. So that is your basics for Mythic Plus. Nothing's really changed going in from Season 2 to Season 3. You're going to deal more damage and you're going to just have a little bit more DR, and life's going to be pretty simple. But now we're going to go into the raid talent builds. And this is more based on single target. Now, if your raid needs you to get Slappy Hands, please do get Slappy Hands, because it is a raid cooldown for just bringing everything in on certain fights. But if you're just looking at single target, you're going to see Soul Reaper. Yeah, Soul Reaper. So, if you've only ever played Blood Decay and you've never played Unholy, this is an incredibly powerful execute effect. And because it synergizes so incredibly well with our tier set, this is something that you are going to want to be pressing. but it cost 1 rune. So do remember, don't just spam Soul Reaper. Make sure that you have enough runic power to be able to death strike yourself out of trouble. This is kind of one of the pitfalls that can fall into the raid scenarios, where you just get into a habit of just spending your runes on Soul Reapers because it deals a lot of damage and it's really, really nice, but you still need runic power to live. Do remember that. Of course, anti-magic zone, still incredibly powerful for raid. One of the things about anti-magic zone is it's based on the amount of health that you have. So if you're using this as a raid cooldown, try to, if you can, vamp blood beforehand to increase your maximum health, or have your party hit rally, although rally has been significantly nerfed, but you will get more, you will just straight up get more value out of anti-magic zone by doing that. And of course, we're going to have our kind of very basic set here of what's going on the Spectra tree. Blood Tap, very, very good for raid, single target scenarios, especially in time when you just need that extra rune. It synergizes very, very well with Soul Reaper and Execute. You get a lot more value out of Blood Tap than you may have had with previous tier sets and previous tiers. So that is where I would be going there. Again, do note, if you do need slappy hands, please grab it. You're the tank. Be the utility bot that you need to be. Blood DK doesn't bring a raid buff, so bring your grips, bring your zone, bring slappy hands if you have to, and go from there. But all around, this is kind of just an all around super solid build for raid where you don't have to worry about a whole lot. But yeah, so there we go there. We have to talk about the legendary really, really quickly as well. So before we get into gear and weapons, there is a two-handed strength legendary, and Blood DK is going to be the only tank that can use it. We know nothing about it right now. So far, current theories are it's going to drop like the Evoker legendary did, where on the first clear of Mythic, there will be a drop, and then it will unlock for every raid tier down below. So if you are trying to get your extremely quick chance at a legendary, watch the Race to World first, and if it looks like they're going to clear it on the reset or a Wednesday, try and maybe hold off from killing Farak on that, on the date, if you know they're close on a Wednesday and you're like, oh man, can we just save Farak for another day? Whatever. But that's true min-maxing to a point that just doesn't need to happen. But that's something to stop and think about. There are a couple trinkets, of course, that we do need to talk about. In Amir Drasil, some very, very good stuff here. I talked about this with a couple of ones as well. The branch of Tormented of the Agent actually is really, really good. Now, if you watch my other tank 10.2 ones, I have been suggesting the Prophetic Stone Scales for the cheat death. But Blood DK already has a very powerful 4-minute cheat death, so it doesn't really need it. So there's a couple of options. So you do have the branch of the Tormented Ancient, which deals decent damage, as well as the Cataclysmic Signet Brand. Now this is an Elementium Pocket Anvil type effect. So in Mythic Plus and Raid, you do need to watch it. Raid, not as much of a concern. Mythic Plus, this is only really good if you are in a dungeon that you never leave combat, or you are you are constantly flowing. You do not want to be dropping combat very often or at all to be able to get the maximum use out of this. Now, for example, we'll just go with last season. If you were in Naltharis, don't wear this. There's a lot of walking around that you are going to lose all of these stacks. But if you're in a freehold style dungeon, guess what? You can just stay in combat the entire dungeon. So you can get very, very good use out of this, but that is something that you're going to have to stop and think about. Pip's Emerald Friendship Badge is just kind of a nice all-around stat bump, and Blood DK really does like all stats. And then we have to talk about Augury of the Primal Flame and Farak's Tainted Rage Heart. The Rage Heart, just recently, the damage got nerfed a bit, but the absorb got increased. And we all know how much Blood DK loves their absorbs. So that one's looking really, really solid just all around. The Augury of the Primal Flame is pretty good. It is pure damage. It is a critical strike. Now, the Rage Heart is versatility only, so this is something you are going to have to make a decision. The main reason being is you're going to want primary stat on at least one of your trinkets. And one trinket that's actually looking pretty good is Coiled Serpent Idol, because your critical strikes have a chance to summon a Lava Serpent, and this thing, from what I'm reading and what I'm seeing, it has around a 40-yard range. So that's really, really good, but obviously, if it procs right when a pull dies and you kind of go away, you're going to lose some value there, but it does, free damage. Blood DK doesn't need more defensives, although the Rage Heart does do some really, really decent damage, and I presume it's going to do some good damage after the nerf as well. So something to look out for there. Definitely decent option. And as well, the Razan's Gleaming Eye. Now this one is from Atal Dazar, so the current season is still not there, but there is a Razan's Gleaming Eye. I'll put it up on screen. There is your damaging abilities have a chance to call a child of Razan viciously, render your target, dealing physical damage and causing them to bleed. Now this has a decent proc rate, and especially with how Blood DK works, this is a very, very good damaging trinket as well, and it is a strength-based trinket as well. So that's really, really good. So I would probably opt to get a Rage Heart as fast as possible and pair it with something else. And last, so for stats, get your haste to where you like it. Plain and simple. Get it to where you like it first. For me, it's between, it's around 25% is where I like it. Now, I do use a Howling Room to kind of keep it there, obviously. Bam, see, 25%. And then you can start focusing on your other stats. You want to start focusing on Mastery first. That's probably your best one because Blood Shield is incredibly powerful. Then opt for Versatility and Critical Strike based on what you want. Stats are more malleable with Blood DK than they kind of ever been, especially with other tanks, because Critical Strike gives you parry rating, which is really good. Versatility just gives you more healing, more damage, and DR, a DR. So you're going to have to feel out your Blood DK for the level of content that you are doing. By the way, if you're curious what that little side thing is on the screen that shows the stats and the penalties, that is true stat values. It is an add-on, and I love it to death. Do remember there is a rune for Critical Strike, Mastery, and Haste, so you can choose where you want your stats to be based on your own consumables. That is something that you can choose and kind of just go from there, right? Embellishments, even after the nerf, the Toxic Flame patches are looking like they're going to be the kind of the top dog. So if you have anything with those already, I currently have one on my belt, just go ahead and upgrade it up and you should be fine. Like I said earlier, legendary weapon, really, really good, but if you have to farm one, it's looking like the Demon Bane, the Gorehowl axe from the Dawn of the Infinites, and the latter half, I think it's Morazan's Rise, if I'm not mistaken. It's Galakon's Thrall and Morazan's Rise, yeah. Are really, really strong if that's something that you were looking for. If you're looking for something temporary to kind of farm yourself out, something that you may need, that is it. But Blood DK is an incredibly strong position. The tier set is simple, but incredibly effective. And with the new legendary, you have a lot to look forward to as a Blood DK this season. That is going to be it for me today. I hope you have yourselves a good one. Good luck on getting your legendaries this season, everyone. I really hope that you do get it. Have yourself a good one. Happy tanking.